Hey there, folks. Hope you're doing well today. You know, things aren't going too well for Nick Fuentes, and the white nationalist movement is starting to wake up to who they're in bed with. We're going to take a look at a bunch of clips that show that today, and let's begin with this one. It's a couple of white nationalists sitting around a podcast table, where one of them is saying that, hey, there's a bunch of people on the internet making this argument, and then the other one says, stop, hold my beer, I need to make that argument.
There's a group of people on the internet who are anonymous, who don't use their real faces, who decided to make this entire thing about how Nick Fuentes is gay and brown and Mexican, and is this what white nationalism is? And it's like,
okay, there's a legitimate criticism here. Okay,
but I mean, all the people calling Nick names, he's brown, he's gay, whatever, they have nothing to say about how the entire city of Miami mobilized to condemn Nick and all of these other people.
That is a misrepresentation of the critics, of many of the critics of this.
Well, they misrepresent him.
Let's leave Nick out of it. You can't look at this picture and tell me that Browns have not usurped the white nationalist movement. We're totally infiltrated here, okay? That's the problem I have with this. I don't want to be represented by Andrew Tate, who's half black. I don't want to be represented by Sneeko, who's some like mystery meat guy.
Well, he's a Muslim anyway.
No, this is not, I don't like it.
Who says that they represent us? They don't represent me.
They're representing us to the general public right now because they're affiliated with Nick. And Nick is the so-called leader of the white nationalist movement. Like, that's the problem I have with this. Are we a white movement, or are we not? And the question, and then the answer to this is apparently not. We're not a white movement.
Oh my God. And this is it. This is that moment of clarity where the white nationalists woke up and they're looking who they're in bed with and they're like, holy shit, Myron Gaines, Andrew Tate, Sneeko, Nick Fuentes, wait a second. None of you are white. And you could just see the disappointment in the co-host's face when she's making the argument he's trying to make fun of. But no, seriously, this is a question the white nationalist movement has to ask themselves. How big of a tent do they really want to have? Just kidding. They're a bunch of white nationalists. And I mean, who would want those douchebags representing them anyways? Oh my God. Okay, so now let's take a look at a different content creator reacting to a clip talking about how Nick Fuentes has been compromised. And I know what you're going to say. Wait, why are you going to the black guy for information about how compromised Nick Fuentes is within the white nationalist movement? That's just where we are today.
Viewers' discretion is advised. Excuse me.
Been watching Nick Fuentes videos. He is not the same whatsoever. He whenever he even says the word Jews, he says the Jews on the left, etc. He doesn't say the Jews. He says the Jews on the left. Oh, it's the Jews on the left. We lost Nick Fuentes. I'm gonna just say it. We lost Nick Fuentes. That's what I think as of right now, unless
Now, that's a bold statement. Not gonna lie, I don't 100% agree with that. But let's be honest here. Well, me personally, with the whole Gavin Newsom thing, that just made me raise a lot of eyebrows, guys, okay?
So what we're seeing here is the outcome of 10 years of conspiracy theory living, all while we're seeing this outrage economy thrive, where people are trying to outdo each other while throwing each other under the bus. In addition to claims like this, where they say he's been compromised, and he himself admitted to a large 7-figure deal recently that is close to striking. One of Mark Levin's former advertisers, interestingly enough. There's also claims that he's a Fed, but Nick isn't doing anything to help himself. He's making all sorts of wild statements like Gavin Newsom is cool, at least for someone on the right to make that statement. He also recently said that he would consider having an OnlyFans model as a wife. Again, not something the audience on the right is going to be too receiving to. Not to mention, he recently justified a lot of Jeffrey Epstein's actions. Let's see him talk about it right here.
And with the whole consent thing, I mean, you just said last year that Jeffrey Epstein had a pedophile island. And now you're saying that Jeffrey Epstein wasn't a pedophile. I'm gonna prove it to you guys. I'm gonna prove it to the Grapers as well. Cause you know, I do love the Graper movement, guys. But even this young man right here is stating the obvious. Nick Fuentes has definitely been acting fishy. I'm sorry. He's been acting fishy. Now, we can go to the whole mogging and looks maxing. Like, look, I don't care about all of that. I care about fixing our country. I think we really starting to lose the plot, guys.
Now, it is interesting to see how honest some of these people are in calling Nick out, or at least honest about the feedback that Nick is getting. In the next clip, we're going to take a look at a big Nick Fuentes fanboy. Guy goes by the name Woman Propaganda. I know, really classy name. Regardless, let's hear what he has to say about some of the heat that Nick Fuentes is taking from Nick's own fans.
All right, guys, I got a Nick Fuentes clip for you today. This has been doing the rounds on Twitter and TikTok and Instagram. He said some very controversial things about Jeffrey Epstein and age of consent laws. People are very mad at him over this. People are saying things like, rare Nick Fuentes L. So even people who like Nick were upset about this. I know Candace Owens didn't like what he had to say here. But this is the full 18-minute go-off right here, posted by Kaiser Rev on Twitter. Nick Fuentes says Jeffrey Epstein was not a PDF file, provides the perfect breakdown on age of consent, why we are a sexually dysfunctional society, and the need to deconstruct feminism. Quote, you people are not ready for this conversation. And people really aren't. And people really don't get it. Like, again, the clips from this episode of America First have been doing the rounds, and everyone's really mad at Nick right now. Or seemingly. A lot of people are upset with him. But he's right!
And so, as he mentioned, this all has to do with the age of consent and trying to justify Jeffrey Epstein's actions and really try to minimize them. But this is a trend we're seeing right now in society. And a very interesting 180 where we recently saw so many people so anti-pedo and really anti-Jeffrey Epstein that now it's being flipped around. People like Nick Fuentes is trying to make him cool, and a small subset of his followers are going along with it. Not only that, but they're trying to blame feminism as one of the reasons why they're no longer able to date and marry teenage girls. Let's take a look.
Last revolutionary sent $20. I know it wasn't your main point, but feminists have completely dominated men with the word. They took what was natural male sexuality for all human history and conflated it with child fucking to shame men away from it and artificially increased the sexual value of hags. How old was Mary again when God impregnated her?
Dude, brother, so true. So true. That is so absolutely true. And listen, you niggas are not ready for that conversation, but Jeff Epstein, not a pedophile. But you're not ready for that conversation. All of his victims, 14 to 17. That's not pedophile. But y'all niggas ain't ready for that conversation. People say that's normalizing pedophilia. No, that's defining pedophilia.
Okay, so he's trying to do a couple of different things here. First of all, he's muddying the water. We don't know all of the ages of Jeffrey Epstein's victims. The totality of the Epstein files have not been released yet. Also, he's trying to get into a technical definition. But even if people are referencing it by an incorrect term, that doesn't make the behavior morally acceptable or morally good. And he tries to dodge the normalization conversation by, again, saying he's defining it. But in reality, we could refer to it as its technical term, statutory rape, something that Nick Fuentes advocates for here in these clips, as we're going to see.
Pedophilia is sex with children. Children are people that are before the age of sexual maturity. Now, you can have your opinion and your taste and your ethics and your morals, but after the age of 14, that is past the point of sexual maturity, just period, biologically. And all of these feminists and all of their accomplices, the simps, they all want to say there's only two genders. They want to talk about reproduction and genitals. Okay, let's talk about reproduction and genitals. When do men and women reach the age of sexual maturity? It ain't 18. It isn't 20. I've seen women say, a 20-year-old girl is a literal child. No, sorry, she's not even a figurative child, let alone a literal child.
Okay, let's just take a second to take a step back. We started this clip with a couple of white nationalists realizing who they were in bed with. a bunch of brown people from different nationalities. Now, one of them, which they themselves called their de facto leader, is out here advocating for being with 14-year-old girls. And again, these people on the right like to argue that they're out here pushing family values. What kind of parents would want to give away their 14-year-old daughter to some 30-year-old man? But this is where the morals and ethics they advocate for lead to. A place where women have no rights and men have control over all of them. So now let's see what kind of examples he's going to present to back up his argument, and let's see how well they stand up.
Do you know what canon law in the Catholic Church says? It says the minimum age to get married is 14 for women, 16 for men. That's the canon law of the Catholic Church. So you want to pull rank on me with morality? I would take you there. And by the way, that's how it was for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Do you know when age of consent became a thing? Like 30 years ago. That is a second wave feminist artifact. But you people are not ready for that. Because ultimately, feminism is the matrix.
And so the first piece of evidence he points to, and we always talk about using your strongest piece of evidence first, is canon law in the Catholic Church, which has the minimum age for women to get married at 14. And I mean, first of all, yes, the Catholic Church has a very long history of not abusing children and taking very good care of them. Oh, wait. I guess I got that wrong. That must have been a different church. Anyways, just because a rule like that exists doesn't mean it's morally acceptable. Instead, when we try to understand why something like that is in place, for all of time, men have ruled the Catholic Church, and that rule benefits men. But there's plenty of laws that were in place that were morally corrupt, things like slavery and child labor laws, things that the political landscape allowed to put in place, but again, not morally acceptable. He also points to age of consent and says, hey, it's only been around for 30 years. While also pointing to feminism being the boogeyman that made all that happen, and tries to break it down into different ways. No, feminism is about equality. And by preventing women from getting married before they're adults at the age of 18, what that is a level of protection and equality. Protecting them from old creepy bastards like Nick from taking advantage of them. But Nick Fuentes, like his good friend Kanye West, pushes the boundaries and takes it even further. This is a pretty well-known picture of Jeffrey Epstein wearing a USA sweater. Well, Nick Fuentes has decided to recreate that, as we could see him wearing it in the clip here.
Whatever kind of spring event you got going on, this is the perfect fit. It's a great conversation starter. People are going to say, wow, I love that quarter zip. Where'd you get it? And you could tell them, I got it on this island. I got it on this island. They were giving them away before the feds showed up.
Not only that, but in true Nick Fuentes form, he tries to put Epstein in a very good light, talking about him being cool and having an aura.
I saw on TikTok, Harry Sisson made a big stink. He said, we're glorifying Jeffrey Epstein. I said, Jeffrey Epstein's cool. Harry Sisson said, well, he's actually very fucking a monster. I said, okay, well, still has drip. Or still has aura.
I can't believe this is real life. This guy not only glazes Adolf Hitler, but also glazes Jeffrey Epstein. And people look up to him. Now, let's be honest about what we're watching. This isn't a movement losing its way. It's a movement telling the truth about itself. Because when you strip away the aesthetics, the grievances, the cosplay of tradition, what's left is an ideology that can't survive without excusing harm. Nick isn't confused. He's not slipping. He's doing the job the ideology demands. When he minimizes Epstein, debates age instead of abuse, and reframes exploitation as biology or history, he's performing the necessary next step, lowering the moral bar until power faces no resistance. That's why the mask always comes off here. Family values collapse the moment they inconvenience men. Protection of children vanishes the second it interferes with control. What remains is entitlement dressed up as philosophy and predators rebranded as victims of modern times. And so moments like this don't implode because outside attackers attack them. They rot from the inside because their core logic rewards cruelty and calls it order. They don't get hijacked. They arrive exactly where they were always headed. And so this isn't edgy, it's not brave, it's not the forbidden truth. It's the oldest excuse in history, and it always ends the same way. Movements built on hierarchy, purity, and grievance cannot function without deciding that some people deserve fewer protections. At first, the target is external, outsiders, minorities, enemies, but once harm is justified in principle, it never stays contained. Not to mention, internal purity tests inevitably cannibalize the movement. These movements, they promise order but are fueled by paranoia. Loyalty is never permanent, and authenticity is never settled. Someone is always not pure enough, not masculine enough, not faithful enough, not radical enough. And historically, this ends in infighting, purges, and betrayal, not unity. And this is everything we're seeing on the right. But historically, we saw this happen with the Nazi movement, the Ku Klux Klan party, and the example of this today is these modern far-right online movements constantly accusing each other of being feds, traitors, or degenerates. Once a movement defines itself by exclusion, it must keep excluding to survive.
Leopards are eating my face.